It was the 5th year of waiting for Victoria Sterling, my childhood sweetheart and fiancée. She finally returned from her volunteer teaching program in Appalachia, but she brought a young man back with her. Kyle saved my life. I can't just abandon him. To repay this debt, Victoria not only had him move into our home, but also demanded I give him my job. Later, after I caught them in the middle of their affair, she got me drunk and pushed me into a lake to drown. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day Victoria demanded I hand over my job. This time, I didn't obey. Instead, I sold my position, took the money, and started my own business. I kicked my backstabbing fiancé to the curb and clawed my way up to become the city's newest self-made success story. Chapter 1. You're just a glorified mechanic with a strong back. You can always find work as a temp. Kyle is a hero who saved our family now. Hurry up and give him your job. It was the end of the workday. Right at the main gate of the power plant, Victoria stood in front of me, arms crossed, her eyes blazing as she demanded I surrender my career. To an outsider, she looked more like a debt collector than my fiancé. The November wind cut like a knife, but my heart felt even colder, instantly plunging into an icy abyss. In my last life, my heart ached for her. She had just returned, and to thank Kyle for saving her, I'd handed over my job without a second thought. The moment I did, they started their affair openly, even having a child together. Reborn, I wouldn't give up my job for anything in the world. I took a deep breath, barely suppressing the urge to tear that smug look off her face. My supervisor said I don't meet the requirements for the new post. I lied through gritted teeth. The position hasn't been finalized. A crowd of onlookers was gathering, and the plant supervisor, Mr. Henderson, came out to disperse them. "Ma'am, please calm down," he said, playing his part. "Mr. Vance's name isn't on the list. We'll notify you if there's any news." Even with the supervisor backing me up, Victoria's eyes were filled with suspicion. She gestured to Kyle, who was standing beside her. He stepped forward and began patting me down, searching my pockets inside and out. When he found no appointment letter, her anger erupted again. "What do you mean you don't meet the requirements? You've been a damn senior technician for years, and you get nothing for it? I was counting on you. I came back thinking I could finally have a comfortable life with you. I wasted all those years waiting. For you for nothing." The more she yelled, the more vicious she became, as if trying to unload all her fury onto me. "What kind of man are you, so useless? You can't make real money, and you can't even secure a promotion. I must have been blind to get engaged to you. You're a complete waste. I can't count on you for anything." Victoria's curses echoed in my ears, a sharp pain in my chest. Her twisted, snarling face bore no resemblance to the girl who used to whisper sweet nothings to me. Finally, exhausted from her tirade, she grabbed Kyle and stormed off, seething with resentment. Watching her disappear, I let out a long sigh of relief and walked into Mr. Henderson's office. Today was the day the new plant division was opening, and veteran employees, like me, got first pick of the new, higher-paying positions. In my past life, Victoria had timed her arrival perfectly, cornering me right as I was about to collect my appointment letter. Thankfully, I was prepared this time. Mr. Henderson was willing to play along because his nephew had been eyeing my potential spot for a long time, and I had always refused to give it up. When I approached him with an offer to take a buyout and forfeit my position, he had agreed without hesitation. In his office, Mr. Henderson looked at me with a mix of pity and concern. "Sincere, are you sure about this? You really want to sell your spot?" Having lived once before, I knew that the steel market was on the cusp of a major shift. It was the perfect time to get into the scrap metal business. Rather than stay at the plant and be harassed by Victoria, I would risk it all to be my own boss. I didn't hesitate. I reached down, pulled the hidden appointment letter from my sock, and handed it to him. "I'm sure, Mr. Henderson," I said, my nod firm. He took the letter, not caring where it had been, and immediately drew up the paperwork, handing me a check for $10,000. He was terrified I'd change my mind. Leaving the plant, I went straight to the train station. I bought a ticket for the day after tomorrow, heading for the industrial heartland. I was determined to become a self-made man. Chapter 2. When I got home, the door to Victoria's room creaked open. She and Kyle walked out together. Her cheeks were flushed a deep red, and his shirt was rumpled in a way that hid nothing. Even though I was prepared for it, the sight still stung my eyes. I looked away, turning to go into my own room. But my belongings, everything that was mine, had been thrown onto the floor in the hallway. As I stared in confusion, Victoria's cold voice came from behind me. "I moved your things." Kyle wasn't comfortable in the study. "Your room is bigger, so he'll be staying there for a while." I said nothing. Beside her, Kyle feigned magnanimity. "Victoria, maybe this isn't a good idea. It's fine, really. I don't want Sincere to be upset over something so small." Seeing my silence, Victoria's face hardened. "Sincere, you don't even have a job anymore. It's only right that you give up the room, and don't you forget, Kyle saved my life. He'll stay wherever I say he stays." I paused, then let out a self-deprecating laugh. With the magic words, "he saved my life," anything she did for Kyle was apparently my duty to accept. I should give him my job. I should give him my room. In fact, the most logical thing to do was to give him Victoria, move out, and let them have their happy ending. Steeling myself, I spoke in a calm tone. "Fine. The room is his from now on. This apartment was company housing anyway. Now that I'd given up my job, I couldn't live here much longer." After I moved all my things into the cramped study, Kyle, a triumphant smirk on his face, eagerly moved into my old room. The next morning when I got up, the two of them were already gone. Just as I was about to leave, an official from the housing authority came by to check on the occupants. Since Victoria and Kale weren't home, I told him to come back the next morning. I went to find Leo, my best friend since childhood, and told him my idea. After hearing my plan to get into the scrap metal trade, Leo was all in. He wanted to be part of it. That night, as I walked back home, the rich smell of grilled meat wafted from a long way off. Ever since Victoria had returned, she'd acted like a queen, expecting to be waited on hand and foot. She either ate out with the money I gave her or waited for me to cook and serve her. For her to be cooking today, had hell frozen over? Puzzled, I pushed the door open. The sight that greeted me was Victoria biting into one end of a thick strip of steak, while Kyle bit into the other. Their lips were so close they were almost touching. Seeing me enter, Kyle paused, quickly bit off his piece, and stood up. "Sincere, bro. Don't get the wrong idea." The steak was a little tough for Victoria, so I was just helping her tear it. Victoria, looking annoyed at the interruption, shot me a glare. "What are you standing there for? Come and eat." I didn't stand on ceremony. I sat down and started digging in, eating hungrily. Seeing me devour the steak, the plate emptying quickly, Victoria grew irritated again. She slammed her fork down with a loud clatter, her face dark. "Are you starving? We've barely eaten, and you've almost finished all the meat for years." Every penny of my salary had been sent to her. All the benefits from the plant vouchers, supplies, clothing, I sent them all. I was so afraid she wouldn't have enough to eat or wear in that poor rural area that I never even bought meat for myself. Only later did I learn that she'd given all of it to Kyle and his family. Thinking of this, a fire of rage churned in my gut, threatening to explode. I channeled my anger into my appetite and ate a few more pieces of steak. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Kyle put on his nice guy act again. "Sincere works hard. He deserves to eat more meat to build up his strength." Their strange behavior put me on edge. I didn't know what they were planning, so I stayed silent, waiting for them to make the first move. Sure enough, a moment later, Kyle shot Victoria a meaningful look. Chapter 3. Victoria actually smiled at me, a warmth in her eyes I hadn't seen in a long, long time. She even picked up a piece of steak, wrapped it in a lettuce leaf, and fed it to me. This is a special cut of beef from Kyle's hometown. You should thank him." Then she dropped the bomb. "Sincere, we always said we'd get married once you had a stable, promoted position. Right now, Cal needs my help. I'm going to marry him first, to help him get his permanent residency and qualify for city benefits." I knew it. This wasn't a dinner, it was an ambush. So they failed to get my job, and now they were making a play for a sham marriage. Victoria and I had grown up together in the same neighborhood. We'd been inseparable for over a decade, and I'd fallen in love with her long ago. Before her father passed away, he put her hand in mine and made me promise to take care of her for the rest of my life. With tears in my eyes, I nodded, and our parents arranged our engagement right away. Then, inspired by a national call for volunteers and to fulfill a personal dream, Victoria chose to join the teaching program in Appalachia. She was gone for 5 years. A month ago she returned, with Kyle in tow. Ever since she came back, it was as if I didn't exist in her eyes. She took Kyle everywhere, showing him the city, taking him on outings. For his birthday, she made me stand in the pouring rain in a long line for a famous deep dish pizza. Later, she left me stranded on the side of the road with a high fever, all so she could go with Kyle to see a play. Time and time again, she chose him. Even when I suggested we finally go get married, she always found an excuse. Then, one day, I overheard her chatting with her colleagues. "You were always so attentive to Kyle during the program. What's the deal with you two?" After a long pause, Victoria finally spoke. "I don't know, but there's just something about him, an energy that just pulls me in." The colleague pressed, "What about Sincere? You're engaged. He waited 5 years for you." Just when I thought she wouldn't answer, I heard her say, "That was just something our parents arranged. To be honest, I was never really in love with him. Sincere is a good man, but life with him, it's just so boring." One word, boring, shredded my heart, leaving me breathless with pain. So, our decade of friendship had never been love for her. But even then, I clung to the promise I made her father. More than that, I held on to a sliver of hope, a fantasy that we could still have a chance. Until today. Today, Victoria used helping Kyle as an excuse to marry him, turning my 5 years of waiting into a cruel joke. Finally, I stopped lying to myself. I decided I was done with her. Her proposal was the perfect out. I took it. "Fine, Victoria. Let's call off the engagement." At my words, Kyle's face lit up, shocked that I had agreed so easily. But Victoria's expression froze. "It's a fake marriage," she explained, flustered. "Once Kyle gets a job and is settled, I'll divorce him and we can get married." I gave a dismissive smile, too tired to argue anymore. Pushing down the bitterness in my heart, I raised a glass of wine to Kyle. "To you, Kyle, for taking such good care of Victoria all these years, this is the least I can do." My sincere act completely convinced them I was on board. Lost in their own joy, they began toasting me, glass after glass. Before long, both of them were dead drunk. I dragged them both into Victoria's room and arranged them in an embrace on the bed. As if by instinct, Kyle rolled over and pulled Victoria even tighter. It was clearly a familiar motion. "You two scumbags," I thought. "Tomorrow you're in for a hell of a show." Chapter 4. The next morning before the sun was up, I returned the apartment keys to Mrs. Henderson. I made sure to remind her to come and reclaim the apartment early, warning her that some people might try to squat and refuse to leave. Victoria and Kyle never dreamed they would wake up to a crowd of people surrounding their bed. Mrs. Henderson had arrived early and knocked, but no one answered. Remembering my warning, she feared the apartment was being occupied illegally, so she had her sons break down the door. The scene that greeted them was Victoria and Kyle, tangled together in bed. The neighbors recognized Victoria and knew she was my fiancée. Scornful looks and loud whispers filled the room. "Isn't that Victoria? Why is she half-dressed in bed with a strange man? I thought she was engaged to Sincere. They were supposed to get married this year, weren't they?" Dizzy and hungover, it took Victoria a moment to process the situation. She instinctively covered her face and tried to explain. "You're misunderstanding. Kyle and I are just friends. He's just staying here as a guest." "Misunderstanding? You're both naked in bed together. What kind of just friends is that? Sincere is in the same apartment, and you have the nerve to be so shameless. You have no decency." Kyle's face went from white to red with humiliation. He was about to say something when a broomstick slammed down hard on his shoulder. He gasped in pain. It was Mrs. Henderson, wielding a broom and ready to start sweeping them out. "Absolutely disgraceful. This is my family's property. Get out, both of you." Hearing this, Victoria forgot about the neighbors and finally understood the real problem. "This is Sincere's apartment. Who are you? What right do you have to say it's yours?" Kyle chimed in immediately. "Yeah, who are you telling to get out? This is our apartment now. You're the ones who should get out." Mrs. Henderson's oldest son, built like a linebacker, grabbed Kyle by the collar. He lifted him up like a stray cat, his eyes furious. "Sincere lost his job, so this apartment belongs to us now. Thankfully, I had warned them, not to mention I'd sold my position to avoid more complications." Hearing they were being kicked out, Victoria and Kale refused to leave. Kale even threw a punch at the man closest to him. He'd grown up rough and was strong, but he was no match for the Henderson brothers. They easily overpowered him. In moments he was kicked to the ground, curled up and groaning in pain. "You shameless bastard, sleeping with another man's fiancée, and you still act so arrogant," one of the brothers yelled, thinking of the job I'd kindly given up. That thought made them hit harder. They gave him a sound beating, leaving Kyle screaming with no way to fight back. Victoria fared no better. She was surrounded by neighbors pointing and shouting at her, practically drowning in a sea of spittle, all her former grace gone. In the end, bruised and humiliated, they could only grab some of their clothes and slink away in shame. The familiar scenery outside the window blurred past as the train rumbled north. Sitting on that train, I couldn't help but laugh thinking about their pathetic state. Over the next month and a half, Leo and I went to the old industrial ports and bought up thousands of tons of scrap steel at rock-bottom prices. Language barriers and logistical snags with foreign buyers delayed our sale for a while, but it was a blessing in disguise. Just as we were ready, a sudden surge in global demand caused steel prices to skyrocket. The value of our scrap metal multiplied more than 10 times over. When we returned, Leo and I had officially made our first real fortune. One day, as I was with him, excitedly planning how to start our own company and expand our business empire, a figure suddenly lunged at me, wrapping me in a tight hug. I looked down and saw it was Victoria. This was not the reunion I had imagined. There was no screaming, no accusations, no hitting. Victoria buried her head in my chest, her eyes filled with a look of aggrieved complaint. "Sincere, where have you been for the past 2 months? I couldn't find you anywhere. I was going crazy with worry. I missed you so much." Chapter 5. Caught off guard, I quickly pushed her away. I gave her a blank look. "Miss Sterling, can I help you with something?" Victoria pretended not to notice the coldness in my eyes. Seeing my new, expensive clothes, she trembled with excitement and began to cry. "Sincere, you're back. That's all that matters. I knew you wouldn't just disappear. You have no idea how hard it's been. Kyle and I were kicked out. We had nowhere to go. How much money did you make? You have to buy a new house, a bigger one this time." From her rambling, I learned that after Mrs. Henderson kicked them out, Kyle's lack of official residency was flagged by the city. Without proper documentation, they were both taken to the police precinct for questioning. They were only let go after Victoria claimed they were about to be married, but since she had just returned from her volunteer program, she hadn't been assigned any housing. Their combined funds couldn't sustain living in a motel for long. With nowhere else to go, she finally remembered me. But my parents were out of town visiting relatives, so our family home was empty. Victoria asked everyone we knew, but no one had seen me. Finally, Kyle managed to pry the information from Leo's family, learning that I'd quit my job and gone into business for myself. So here she was ambushing me, and the first thing out of her mouth was about my money. Seeing her entitled and self-absorbed attitude, I felt nothing but disgust. I cut her off with a cold laugh. "Victoria, our engagement is off. The money I make has nothing to do with you, and your hard times have nothing to do with me." Her expression shifted instantly from shock to fury. "Sincere, how can you be so cruel? How can you say something like that to me? We agreed it was a fake breakup. It was to help Kyle. So now that you've made some money, you're turning your back on me? Is that it? How could you do this to me?" Hearing her righteous indignation, I didn't hold back. I exposed her lie without mercy. "Fake? You were helping him right into your bed, Victoria. Stop treating me like an idiot. You two have been together for a long time." At my words, there was no trace of guilt on her face. Instead, she looked even more defiant. "Sincere, don't forget the promise you made to my father. Our engagement was arranged by our families. You can't just call it off. And what happened with Kyle was just a misunderstanding. We were drunk that night. That's all. You were there, you knew." Suddenly, a realization seemed to dawn on her. She looked up at me sharply. "Sincere, you knew, didn't you? This was your doing." I didn't deny it. I met her accusing gaze head on. "Yes, it was me, and I've known for a long time that you and Kale were having an affair back in Appalachia, Victoria. I gave you too many chances. You're the one who threw them away. If you have any shred of dignity left, you'll never mention our engagement again." She paled, stunned that I knew so much. I had no more patience for her pointless drama. I grabbed Leo and we walked away quickly, off to scout locations for our new office. Over the next few days, Leo and I were busy preparing for our company's launch. One day, while I was meeting with some potential partners, Kyle found me. He approached me with the look of a kicked puppy, his voice full of feigned misery. "Sincere, man, please don't blame Victoria. She was just trying to help me get my residency. If you're going to blame someone, blame me. We'll get a divorce in a few days. I'll give her back to you. I heard you made a fortune and haven't given her a dime. She doesn't even hold it against you. She's always thinking about you. How can you be so heartless to her?" Listening to Kyle's shameless performance, a pathetic apology wrapped in a guilt trip, my face darkened. But with clients present, I restrained myself from yelling. How I treat her is between her and me. It has nothing to do with you. You're a grown man freeloading off a woman. How do you have the nerve to lecture me? Oh, and by the way, all that money you've been spending was from the nest egg I sent her for our future. When are you going to pay me back? Chapter 6. My words hit their mark. Kyle never expected me to be so blunt. The demand for repayment left him frozen in place. That was Victoria's money to spend. "Why should I have to pay you back?" His ridiculous reaction was almost funny. "Before she left for her program, my family gave her $5,000 for our future," I continued. "I heard it all went to your family. Now that our engagement is over, I have no choice but to ask for it back from you. Or is the man who leeches off a woman, living in her home, eating her food, unable to pay it back? I might consider a payment plan, but you'll sign an IOU. I want every last cent." Kyle looked like he profoundly regretted ever showing up. His attempt at emotional blackmail had backfired, leaving him utterly humiliated. For a while after that, both of them stayed away. After our company was established, it brought a significant boost to the local economy. The mayor himself even came to our grand opening ceremony to give a speech. Then one day, I got a call from the mayor of my old hometown, asking me to come back for a visit. I had to ask Leo to entertain our clients while I rushed back. As I arrived, I saw one of our old neighbors, an elderly woman, gossiping under a large tree. I was about to greet her, but she picked up her stool and scurried away, as if avoiding the plague. All the way to my family's house, it was the same story. Neighbors I'd known my whole life dodged me, their strange glances making me deeply uneasy. I didn't have time to dwell on it. As I approached my house, I saw a crowd gathered outside. A large bulldozer was pushing down the walls of my home. My heart stopped. "Stop," I roared. "What are you doing? This is my home." Though no one lived in the old house, my parents had always paid someone to look after it. Just then, Victoria walked out of the half-demolished house. Her face changed when she saw me. "Sincere, why are you back?" Her nervous tone didn't escape me. I strode up to her, furious. "What are you doing at my family's home? Why are you tearing it down?" Victoria took a few steps back, her voice rising to a shout. "What do you think you're doing, Sincere? Are you going to hit me?" She turned to the crowd. "Everyone, come and look, an ungrateful monster. He gets rich and abandons his fiancée. Now he's trying to bully me." At her words, the villagers started murmuring, their gazes turning hostile. "What a shameless man. Look at those fancy clothes. And he's treating her like that. To think we watched him grow up. A little money, and he's already rotten." Listening to them, and remembering the strange looks I'd received, I realized how Victoria had been slandering me. The town mayor, a distant uncle from my clan, rushed over to explain what was happening. It turned out Kyle, still jobless and seeing my success, had decided he also wanted to be an entrepreneur. He and Victoria had cooked up a plan. They'd heard about an opportunity to open a small manufacturing workshop and had their eyes on my family's land. So Victoria had simply brought people here to claim it. "We all knew you and Victoria were engaged," the mayor explained. "So when she openly took over the house, we didn't feel it was our place to say anything. But when she brought in a bulldozer today, it didn't feel right. That's when I called you." I thanked him for the timely call, my gut churning with a cold fire as I stared at Victoria's triumphant expression. "Victoria, I'll say it one more time. There is nothing between us anymore. This is my family's house. If you don't leave now, I'm calling the police." But she was unfazed, leaning in to whisper, "You're living the high life in the city now, right? What are you even doing back here? Since you insisted on breaking our engagement, consider this house my compensation. When Kyle's business takes off, I'll pay you back. Maybe. This house was our ancestral home, passed down through generations. More importantly, the land was slated for major redevelopment and would be worth a fortune. I would never let her have it." Seeing me hesitate, Victoria must have thought I was agreeing. She turned and yelled to the bulldozer operator, "Don't stop, keep going until this whole place is flattened." The roar of the engine snapped me back to reality. My eyes widened in horror. "Stop," I screamed, rushing forward to block the machine. "Everyone, stop right now." Chapter 7. Just then, the wail of police sirens echoed from the edge of the village. Police cars rolled in, blocking the main road. A large group of officers quickly surrounded the crowd. The villagers had never seen anything like it, and the scene descended into chaos. "Which one of you is Kyle?" a detective called out, his sharp eyes scanning the faces in the crowd before landing on a stunned Victoria. She immediately shot me a furious glare. "Sincere, are you insane? You actually called the cops?" I just shook my head, as bewildered as she was. Suddenly, a commotion came from behind the ruined wall. People ran over to see what was happening. It was Kyle. He had heard the sirens and tried to make a run for it, but he was caught immediately. "Kyle, you're under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon," the detective stated calmly. Not only was Victoria in disbelief, but everyone else was shocked. Kyle was a criminal? The police were here for him? The officers didn't care what anyone thought. They moved to take Kyle into custody. Victoria, seeing the man she loved being led away, rushed forward. "Officers, there must be a mistake. Kyle isn't that kind of person. He's been with me every day. How could he have committed a crime? You can ask our neighbors if you don't believe me." A few of the workers, who had been with them for the past few days, also chimed in. "Yeah, officers, he's been here the whole time. Maybe you got the wrong guy." The lead detective addressed the crowd with a stern expression. "Please remain calm. We don't make arrests without evidence. We will not wrong an innocent man." Hearing this, Victoria's legs gave out, and she nearly fainted. I stopped watching and turned to dismiss the demolition crew. In the end, Kyle was taken to the local police station. At the station, Victoria, barely able to stand, was still defending him. "You must have it wrong. Kyle must have been framed. It has to be sincere he was jealous of Kyle and set him up." The officer taking her statement finally lost his patience. "Ma'am, please calm down. You are interfering with an official investigation." He had her escorted from the building. I later heard that the investigation confirmed Kyle had assaulted a young woman with a knife back in his hometown. She had been his girlfriend, but she refused to marry him. After her family reported him to the police, he fled with Victoria. The city registry check I had prompted earlier had put him on the police's radar. Once they confirmed his identity, they came to arrest him. When Victoria heard the full story, her world imploded. She had known Kyle for 5 years and had no idea what kind of person he truly was. The shock was too much, and Victoria was admitted to the hospital. After settling the matter of my family's home, I fled my hometown like it was a plague-ridden city and threw myself back into my business. I thought that after all this I could finally be free of Victoria for good. But who would have thought she would track me down again, as persistent as ever? I found her waiting for me, her face streaked with tears, sobbing hysterically. "Sincere, Kyle's been locked up. It's hopeless. Can you lend me some money? I can't just stand by and watch him go to prison." Chapter 8. It turned out she and Kyle had taken out a loan for their workshop. Now, not only was the land gone, but she also had to compensate me for the damage to my house. On top of that, Kyle's assault case required money for a lawyer and potential restitution to the victim's family to argue for a lighter sentence. Victoria looked at me with pleading eyes, desperate for a lifeline. But she didn't know that I was about to pour salt on her wounds. "None of that has anything to do with me. You brought all of this on yourself. And Victoria, I forgot to mention something. I was the one who reported Kyle to the police. I won't lend you a single penny, especially not to save him. I owed it all to a man from Appalachia I'd met on the train. We got to talking, and he told me a sad story about his niece. As he spoke, I realized the details about the man in his story matched Kyle perfectly. I got his contact information and arranged for him and his family to come to our city and file a report." Victoria's lips trembled, her eyes wide with unshed tears. Her expression was one of pure disbelief, as if she couldn't comprehend that those words had come from my mouth. "You, Sincere, it really was. You, it's over. Everything is over. Why would you do this?" Enraged, she lunged at me, trying to strike me. I pushed her back. She stumbled and collapsed onto the floor. I frowned, my eyes filled with disgust. "Victoria, stop being so delusional. Don't force me to get rough." Finally understanding that I was never going to help her, she left. Later, I heard Kyle was extradited back to his home state and sentenced to prison. Although Victoria wasn't legally implicated, her reputation was destroyed. At the school where she had briefly worked, she was met with pointing fingers and vicious gossip. She couldn't stand it, and the school, considering its own image, fired her. I paid no more attention to these matters and focused solely on my business. To expand our market share, I began taking business trips across the country. Leo stayed behind to manage the company and handle clients. On one such train trip, I was chatting with a new acquaintance I'd just met. Suddenly, a man lunged from behind, swinging a knife at me. Someone shoved me hard, and the blade missed my vital organs, but it slashed deeply into my arm. Warm blood gushed out, staining my shirt bright red. In the chaos, I thought I saw Kyle's face. I was right. Seeing he hadn't landed a fatal blow, he ignored the transit police, converging on him and lunged again, grabbing me in a chokehold. The cold, sharp blade pressed against my neck. "Everybody back off, stay away from me," Kyle screamed. I tried to calm him down, but it only enraged him further. "Shut up, Sincere, this is all your fault, you despicable snake. If you hadn't turned me in, I never would have been caught since. You wanted revenge so badly, I'm not going to let you get away with it." He tightened his grip on my neck, the blade digging in. Fortunately, the trained security officers were quick. They closed in and, in a swift move, subdued him, pinning him to the ground. Seeing he could no longer reach me, Kyle started screaming abuse. "It's not fair. Why do you get everything, Sincere? I finally had a chance to escape that miserable life, and you destroyed it, but it doesn't matter what you do, Victoria will never love you. She only loves me." Listening to him, I could only find it comical. I never wanted to compete with him. I reported him because he was a violent criminal, the Sincere from my past life, the one who would have given up everything for Victoria, had already drowned in the icy cold lake. In this life, all I wanted was to escape and build a life of my own. But you can't wake someone who is pretending to be asleep. Kyle was lost in his own twisted narrative. At the police station, I learned that the woman who had pushed me out of the way was named Sophia. She was from a coastal city, also on a business trip. To thank her, I offered to be her guide for the rest of our time in the city. I told her about my company's business model, and as we talked, we discovered our philosophies on business and life were remarkably similar. Over the next 2 months, we both closed several successful deals. When it was time to part ways, we exchanged contact information, promising to stay in touch. Chapter 9. In less than a year, Leo and I had more than doubled our net worth. One day, Sophia came to my city on a business trip. We were having dinner at a nice restaurant when I saw a familiar figure, Victoria. It had been a long time. She looked pale and haggard, completely drained of life. The sight of Sophia and me laughing and talking happily together seemed to stab her in the eyes. Before anyone could react, she let out a wild cry and violently flipped our table over. "You shameless homewrecker," Victoria shrieked, her words a chaotic mess. Seducing my fiancée in broad daylight, my head throbbed, my face burning with embarrassment. I rushed to check on Sophia. Thankfully, she wasn't hurt, though her clothes were ruined. I called a waiter and asked them to buy a new outfit for her. Then I grabbed Victoria and dragged her outside the restaurant. "Victoria, have you lost your mind? Stop making a scene," but she wasn't listening. "I'm not crazy, Sincere, it's because you wouldn't see me. Are you still mad at me? What do I have to do to make you forgive me? You promised you would marry me. How can you be with someone else?" Then she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "Sincere, I really know I was wrong now. Can you please give me one more chance?" She looked genuinely remorseful. But her tears, which once could have moved mountains for me, now did nothing. I mercilessly pushed her away as she tried to get closer. Just then, Sophia walked out of the restroom. She calmly and naturally linked her arm with mine. "Miss Sterling, please, that's enough. You and Sincere are in the past. He's with me now." I seized the opportunity, taking Sophia's hand in mine and nodding. "In fact," I added, "I was about to propose. You've completely ruined the surprise." At my words, Victoria's face went ashen. She stared at Sophia, her voice barely a whisper, her teeth clenched. "I don't believe you. Sincere, you still love me. You wouldn't propose to her, she's tricking you. Do you really think this woman loves you? She's only after your money." But I just smiled, looking at Sophia with genuine affection. "I really do love her, and I'm not afraid of being tricked," I added with a casual smirk. "Because she has more money than I do. I had lived 2 lives. And now I finally understood. Only people who are striving for the same goals can truly walk the same path." Finally, the restaurant owner heard the commotion and came out, pulling a still struggling Victoria away. The owner later told me that after losing her job, Victoria had tried to make a living as a street vendor, but she was too proud and couldn't bring herself to hawk her wares. She wasn't cut out for that kind of hardship. Believing her bit of education made her superior, she quickly lost all her money and ended up deep in debt. Out of respect for her late father, the owner had given her a job at the restaurant. Given the circumstances, I only asked her to pay for the damages. As we left the restaurant, Victoria stood by the door, her eyes filled with tears, looking at me as if she wanted to say something. But she must have seen the undisguised disgust on my face. This time she said nothing more, just watched us leave with a look of profound loss. Chapter 10. The dinner was ruined. I turned to Sophia, feeling terrible. "I'm so sorry about tonight. I promise I'll make it up to you." Over the past few months of frequent contact, I had genuinely fallen for her. I had planned to confess my feelings tonight over a meal of local specialties. Instead, she got a front row seat to a circus. But Sophia just smiled, brushing it off. "Was what you said earlier true, about proposing to me?" I nodded, then shook my head. A confession and a proposal were two very different things. Afraid she'd misunderstood, I quickly clarified. "I was planning to tell you how I feel." Sophia squeezed my hand. "I accept." To make up for the ruined dinner, I decided to invite her for a home-cooked meal. My parents had recently returned from their trip. They'd heard about everything that had happened and had a storm of mixed feelings. They had hoped Victoria's return would mean a wedding for us. Now, while lamenting our fate, they were already nagging me to go on dates and find a wife. When I opened the door to my parents' house, I found an unwelcome guest. Victoria was in the kitchen, wearing an apron, cooking. My mom pulled Sophia and me aside to explain. For the past few days, Victoria had been coming over, apologizing profusely to my parents, telling them how much she regretted everything. After all, they had watched her grow up and couldn't find it in their hearts to be completely merciless. After her repeated promises to behave, they had agreed to let her come over for dinner. Victoria's sudden change for the better made me suspicious, and I stayed on high alert. But the evening passed without incident. She ate, was polite, and left. After I walked Sophia home, I returned, had a glass of water, and prepared for bed. Suddenly, a wave of heat washed over me. Something was very wrong. The next second, my bedroom door flew open. It was Victoria. She hadn't left. She was standing there in a nightgown. "Sincere, you forced me to do this," she hissed. Like a woman possessed, she threw herself at me, trying to tear off my clothes. My head was spinning, my limbs growing weak and heavy. But I fought back with every ounce of strength I had, desperately trying to keep her away from me. Just as my clothes were about to be ripped off, the door was kicked open. It was Leo. He had saved me. At the hospital, the doctor's words left us all stunned. Victoria was pregnant, and she had been trying to frame me as the father. Furthermore, her mental state appeared to be unstable. My mother sighed repeatedly. How did it come to this? What a tragedy. My father's last shred of pity for Victoria had vanished. He shuddered to think what would have become of my life if her plan had succeeded. In her hospital room, when Victoria learned the truth was out, she collapsed. On the floor, her sobs echoing with a pain that tore through her soul. She couldn't seem to comprehend how her life had ended up in such ruins. A few days later, she chose to terminate the pregnancy and was admitted to a long-term psychiatric facility. I heard that sometime after, she slipped away from the nurses, wandered off, and fell into a river. She drowned. Years later, my scrap metal company had made me a titan of industry. I not only became a millionaire, but the wealthiest man in the region. And Sophia was by my side through it all.